Florida has long been sold to the world as the ultimate promised land for anyone looking to escape high taxes and freezing winters. For decades, the pitch was incredibly simple. Move to the coast, buy a home near the sand, and enjoy a lifestyle that felt like a permanent vacation. But as we cross into 2026, that postcard perfect image is being replaced by a much more grim and expensive financial reality for thousands of families. The secret that real estate agents tried to hide is finally out, and the numbers show that the Florida dream is hitting a massive brick wall. While many outsiders still think of palm trees and sunshine, the actual cost of keeping a roof over your head here has turned into a total nightmare. Home insurance prices are exploding, property values in once popular neighborhoods are sliding, and hidden risks are finally catching up to the market. In January 2026, Florida officially claimed the top spot for the highest home foreclosure rate in the entire United States, beating out every other state. Latest data shows that 1 in every 1,829 homes is currently facing legal trouble because owners simply cannot keep up with the rising cost of living. If you are thinking about putting your hard-earned life savings into a property here, you are taking a gamble that more and more people are losing. Here are the top 5 cities in Florida where you will absolutely regret signing those mortgage papers in 2026. Number 5, Fort Myers. Coming in at number 5 is Fort Myers, a city that is still struggling to find its footing years after the destruction of Hurricane Ian. If you take a slow drive through the neighborhoods of Fort Myers today, you will see a very strange and unsettling mix of sights. You will see brand new, expensive construction sitting right next to empty, overgrown lots that have been abandoned for years. These empty lots aren't waiting for developers to arrive. They are there because the original owners realized they couldn't afford to rebuild. The hurricane hit this area with 155-mile-per-hour winds and a wall of water so high it wiped entire blocks off the map. Since that day, the local housing market has never truly found its way back to a stable or healthy state. Lee County has experienced some of the most dramatic and painful drops in home values in the entire state of Florida. Recent reports from early 2026 show that home prices in the Fort Myers area have fallen by 11% over the last 2 years alone. That is officially the biggest price drop for any major metropolitan area in the United States, and the slide is not stopping. Many people thought they could buy cheap properties right after the storm and flip them for a quick profit, but that plan failed miserably. The cost to rebuild homes to the new, much stricter safety standards is so high that the math no longer works for normal families. Insurance companies have looked at the damage and responded by doubling or even tripling their annual quotes for this specific area. When you buy a home in Fort Myers in 2026, you aren't just paying for the 4 walls and the roof, you are paying a massive price for the risk. This has created a devastating ripple effect on the local economy that is starting to change the very fabric of the community. Many of the local workers who keep the hotels, shops, and restaurants running can no longer afford to live anywhere near their jobs. We are seeing a ghost town effect where the service industry is dying because the staff has been forced to move 2 hours away just to find rent they can afford. When a city loses the people who make it run, the local economy starts to rot from the inside out, and property values always follow that decay. On top of the financial stress, Fort Myers is now facing a dangerous and record-breaking increase in extreme heat that many buyers ignore. Scientific studies show that 99% of the houses here will face dangerous triple-digit heat levels for the majority of the summer months. It is becoming so hot that your monthly air conditioning bill could easily rival your car payment just to keep your family safe and cool. The character of the town is also being erased as small, family-owned businesses give up and sell their land to massive global corporations. These corporations are building giant, high-end resorts that sit empty for half the year, leaving the surrounding neighborhoods feeling cold and hollow. If you buy a home here now, you are betting your entire future that another major hurricane won't hit this coast for at least another 10 years. But with the way global weather patterns are shifting, that is a bet that most smart financial experts wouldn't take with their own money. Fort Myers is a beautiful place to visit for a weekend getaway, but it is a very dangerous place to tie up your life savings right now. You are buying into a market that is still trying to decide if it even has a future in this new era of high insurance and climate change. The for sale signs are posted on every corner, but the buyers have disappeared, and that should be a massive warning sign to anyone watching. Every single month that you stay in a house here, you are likely watching more of your equity vanish into thin air as the market continues to sink. The old dream of a cheap, sunny beach house in Fort Myers has been officially replaced by the reality of a 30-year financial burden you can't escape. People are waking up to the fact that owning a piece of this paradise costs more in stress and money than it is actually worth. Don't be the person who buys at the tail end of a disaster. It's thinking you are getting a deal when you are actually getting a liability. The numbers in Fort Myers are a loud siren, and ignoring them is the fastest way to ruin your financial stability for decades. Number 4, Jacksonville. Next on our list at number 4 is Jacksonville, which is the largest city in Florida by land size, but also one of the most troubled in 2026. Jacksonville used to be known as the safe harbor for people who wanted Florida sunshine without the crazy price tags of Miami or Tampa, but that reputation is being torn apart as the city faces a massive surge in available homes that absolutely nobody wants to buy anymore. The number of houses sitting on the market has jumped from 2,000 to over 12,000 in just a few short years of economic shifts. Oh, that means there are now 6 times more people trying to leave the city than there are people trying to move in and start a life. Jacksonville recently made national headlines for having the biggest year-over-year home price drop of any major city in the entire country. The typical house price has fallen by over $16,000, and for many middle-class homeowners, that represents their entire life savings gone. But the biggest and most hidden threat to your investment in Jacksonville isn't just the failing economy, it is the water from the St. Johns River. This massive river runs right through the heart of the city and behaves in ways that most out-of-state homebuyers simply do not understand. Because the river is so flat and sits so low to sea level, rising oceans are pushing saltwater 150 miles deep into inland neighborhoods. And this means you can live miles away from the beach and still have your backyard flood with saltwater every time the tide comes in. It is a slow-motion disaster that is quietly destroying the foundations of homes in areas that were once considered perfectly safe and dry. The city's infrastructure is also a ticking time bomb that is finally starting to explode in early 2026. Jacksonville has struggled for decades with thousands of old broken septic tanks that are leaking human waste into local creeks and rivers. The city needs over $2 billion to fix this massive environmental mess, but they simply do not have that kind of money in the budget. Homeowners in certain neighborhoods are being told they might have to pay $20,000 out of their own pockets to connect to new pipes. On top of that, dozens of critical buildings like schools, hospitals, and fire stations are now officially sitting in permanent flood zones. High tide flooding is no longer a rare event that happens once a year. It is something that happens multiple times a month now. This flooding regularly shuts down major roads, damages thousands of cars, and makes it impossible for people to get to work on time. Foreclosure rates are also soaring in Jacksonville, with 1 in every 1,576 homes currently facing a bank takeover as owners give up. This city is so massive and spread out that the local government cannot possibly afford to build seawalls or drainage systems for every area. If you buy a home in the wrong part of town, you are essentially on your own when the water starts to rise through the storm drains. And the insurance companies know exactly which streets are at risk, and they are raising their rates to levels that are scaring away everyone. People are moving away because they can't afford the insurance, and they can't afford the constant repairs when the streets turn into rivers. Buying a home in Jacksonville in 2026 is like buying a ticket to a show that has already been canceled but hasn't told the audience yet. The value of your property is likely to keep falling as the water continues to move further into the city's residential streets every year. It is a beautiful city with a lot of southern history, but the future looks incredibly wet and incredibly expensive for anyone owning land. Jacksonville is no longer the affordable paradise it once was. It is a high-risk gamble that is starting to fail for the average person. You will regret the day you signed for a house here when you realize your property is becoming part of the river instead of the city. The infrastructure decay is so deep that no amount of cosmetic renovation can fix the underlying problems with the land itself. Real estate here is becoming a game of musical chairs, and the music has already stopped for most of the neighborhoods near the water. Don't let the low initial price tag fool you into thinking you're getting a deal on a house that might be uninsurable in 5 years. Number 3, Pensacola moving to the Florida Panhandle. We have Pensacola at number 3, a city that sits right in the dangerous crosshairs of Hurricane Alley. Pensacola tries to market itself as a laid-back, historic beach town with a low cost of living compared to the chaos of South Florida. But as we enter 2026, the cost of living here is anything but low when you factor in the massive mandatory insurance and flood risks. The housing market in Pensacola is currently in a total tailspin, with home values dropping over 3.6% in just the last 12 months. The stability score for the city has fallen to a dangerous 33 out of 100, which puts it deep into the zone where a market crash is likely. About 30% of all the homes for sale in this city have had to lower their prices recently because nobody is showing up for tours. But the real real financial blow for homeowners came when the federal government decided to update the official flood maps for the entire area. Thousands of homes that were once considered safe and didn't require flood insurance are now officially listed in high-risk zones. This map change means that anyone with a mortgage is now forced by their bank to pay an extra $900 a year for flood protection. That might not sound like a lot of money to some, but when you add it to your regular insurance, which is already doubling, it breaks the family budget. Pensacola is surrounded by water on 3 sides and sits at a very low elevation, making it a perfect target for every tropical storm. The city has a brutal and documented history of being leveled by major hurricanes like Ivan and Sally, which caused billions in local damage. During Hurricane Sally, the local naval air station had 433 of its 500 buildings flooded, proving that no amount of construction can stop the sea, even if your house isn't in a flood zone on the maps. Plus, the massive amount of tropical rainfall this area gets can still destroy your home. Nearly 20% of all insurance claims for water damage in Pensacola come from homes that were supposedly in low-risk areas. The insurance market here is becoming so unstable that many national companies are simply refusing to write any new policies for the area. This makes it almost impossible for you to sell your home later, because the new buyer won't be able to get a mortgage without an insurance plan. We are seeing people become trapped in their own homes, unable to leave and unable to afford the rising costs of just staying put. Military families stationed here are being forced into substandard housing because the local real estate market is so broken and expensive. If you are not forced to live in Pensacola for a specific job, there is absolutely no reason to buy a home here in 2026. You are buying a piece of property in a location that is naturally designed to be underwater or hit by wind every few years. The tourist brochures always show the white sand and the blue water, but they never show the rows of houses with blue tarps on the roofs. Buying a home here is a gamble where the house always wins and the homeowner is left holding the bill for the catastrophic damage. Your home value will continue to struggle as more and more people realize that the Gulf Coast is becoming too dangerous to inhabit long term. Pensacola is a beautiful place for a summer vacation, but owning property here is a fast track to financial ruin and constant anxiety. It is one of the most dangerous markets in the state. And the data from 2026 proves that the risk is simply not worth the potential reward. The infrastructure in the Panhandle is struggling to keep up with the repair costs from previous storms, leaving the city vulnerable. Every time a storm forms in the Gulf, homeowners in Pensacola lose sleep, wondering if this is the one that will take their entire investment. This kind of stress isn't what people sign up for when they dream of moving to Florida, yet it is the daily reality in this city. Don't be fooled by the historic charm of the downtown area. The numbers underneath that charm are telling a story of decline. Number 2, Miami Beach. Coming in at number 2 is Miami Beach, a city that is currently the global face of both the climate crisis and the housing bubble. Miami Beach is world famous for its neon lights and glamour. But in 2026, that glamour is being washed away by the rising Atlantic Ocean. We are now seeing sunny day flooding on a regular basis, where seawater pushes up through the storm drains and fills the streets. This happens even when the weather is perfectly clear, simply because the tide is high and the city is built too low on the water. In 2026, this is happening about 50 days out of the year, making it impossible to drive or even walk in certain luxury neighborhoods. By the time a new 30-year mortgage is finished, experts warn that this flooding could be happening nearly every single week of the year. The ground underneath Miami Beach is made of porous limestone, which acts like a giant wet sponge that you cannot block with a wall. And this means that seawalls cannot stop the water because the ocean simply flows underneath the walls and bubbles up from the soil in your yard. The city has spent over $400 million on massive pumps and raising the level of the roads to keep the luxury cars dry for now. But the city's own leaders have admitted in public meetings that they are only buying a little bit of time, perhaps 30 to 50 years at most. If you buy a home here now, you are buying into a city that might not even be habitable by the time you are ready to retire and relax. But the weather is only half of the massive problem. The other half is a crisis in the condo market that is destroying wealth overnight. After a major building collapse in 2021, the state passed new laws requiring strict, expensive inspections and repairs for all old condos. But these repairs are incredibly costly, and the bills are being passed directly to the people who own the individual units in these buildings. We are seeing special assessments, where condo owners are suddenly handed a bill for $100,000 that must be paid in full immediately. Monthly maintenance maintenance fees have jumped from $500 to over $2,000 a month in many of the older iconic high-rise buildings. People are desperate to sell their condos before the next big repair bill arrives, which has caused a massive oversupply of units for sale. There is currently 14 months of condo inventory sitting on the market in Miami Beach, which is a sign of a deep and painful market collapse. Typical condo prices have dropped by 10% in the last year, and many are selling for even less than that just to get a deal done. Almost no banks will give out standard loans for these buildings anymore because the buildings don't meet the new safety or financial rules. If a buyer can't get a bank loan, it means the only people who can buy are cash investors who will only pay the lowest possible prices. The investment bank UBS has ranked Miami as having the highest risk of a housing bubble in the entire world for the year 2026. The math simply does not work when the average family income is $70,000, but the average home cost is over $600,000. When the federal government eventually stops helping with the cost of flood insurance, the prices in Miami Beach will fall through the floor. Buying a home in Miami Beach in 2026 is like buying a front row seat to a disaster movie, and you are the one paying for the whole show. It is a glamorous trap that will likely cost you everything you have worked for over the next few decades of your life. Miami Beach is a sinking ship in more ways than one, and the smart money has already started looking for the exits and moving inland. The cost of maintaining a luxury lifestyle here is becoming a tax on your sanity as you watch the water level rise every year. Don't let the celebrity sightings and the fancy clubs distract you from the fact that the very ground under your feet is disappearing. This is the most expensive mistake you could possibly make in the Florida market today, and the data is screaming at you to stay away. Number 1. Punta Gorda. Finally, the number one city you will absolutely regret buying a home in 2026 is the quiet coastal community of Punta Gorda. And this small city on the Gulf Coast is currently experiencing a total and catastrophic collapse of its local housing market. Punta Gorda has the steepest and most painful home price declines in the entire state of Florida and some of the worst in the whole country. Homes in Punta Gorda are now sitting empty and raked with for sale signs for an average of 162 days before they find a single buyer. That is more than 5 long months of waiting and praying while your property value drops by 7% or more below your original price. The history of this town is defined by 2 massive life-altering hurricanes, Charley in 2004 and the more recent Hurricane Ian in 2022. Hurricane Charley surprised everyone and leveled the town, destroying 11,000 homes in a single afternoon and leaving people homeless. Then Hurricane Ian arrived and finished what Charley started, causing massive new damage and a permanent jump in insurance costs. What makes Punta Gorda so incredibly vulnerable is that it is a community mostly made up of elderly retirees living on fixed incomes. These are people who moved here for a peaceful life and a safe place to keep their life savings, but they are now facing a nightmare. These retirees are now stuck in homes that are worth much less than what they paid for them during the boom years of 2021 and 2022. They are facing insurance bills that they simply cannot afford to pay on a social security check or a modest pension. Many of them are being forced to sell their homes at a massive financial loss just to get out from under the rising costs and the debt. But because nobody wants to buy into a high-risk hurricane zone with failing infrastructure, these people are essentially trapped. Punta Gorda is also facing a massive and deadly increase in extreme heat that makes it dangerous for seniors to even leave their houses. Every single property in the city is now officially classified as being at extreme risk for dangerous and prolonged heat waves. Unlike larger cities like Miami, Punta Gorda is a smaller community that simply doesn't have the tax money to build massive protection systems. The city is essentially at the mercy of the next storm, and the insurance companies know that another direct hit is eventually inevitable. We are seeing waterfront homes that were bought for $1 million in 2022 being sold for $600,000 or less in 2026 just to clear the debt. Odd bank valuations are showing that these properties have lost 30 to 40% of their value in just a few short years of decline. This is not a normal market correction. It is a complete and total destruction of the Florida retirement dream for an entire generation. If you buy a home in Punta Gorda now, you are buying into a situation with no clear exit strategy and no safety net from the government. You will be watching your net worth disappear while you wait for the next storm to arrive and finish off the rest of the town. It is the perfect example of why the old Sunshine State promise is becoming a nightmare for the people who actually believed in it. Retirees are losing their life savings in a town that is slowly being reclaimed by the Atlantic Ocean and the rising heat of the sun. Punta Gorda is the biggest and loudest warning sign in the state of Florida, and anyone who ignores this data is asking for ruin. It is the #1 place to avoid if you want to protect your family's future, your bank account, and your peace of mind. The emotional toll of living in a town that is constantly on the brink of disaster is something that no real estate brochure will ever mention. Don't be the one who buys into this market just because the views are pretty, because those views come with a price you cannot afford. Punta Gorda is the end of the line for the Florida housing boom, and the crash here is going to be felt for the next 20 years. Florida will always be a place that people love to visit for the beautiful beaches and the warm weather that feels like a dream. Millions of people will continue to live here, and many will find a way to make it work despite the rising costs and the risks. But the days of Florida being a safe, cheap, and easy place to buy a home and build wealth are officially over in 2026. If you are thinking about moving to any of these 5 cities, you need to look far past the beautiful views and the palm trees. You need to look at the insurance quotes, the updated flood maps, and the historical storm data before you spend a single dime. A 30-year mortgage is a very long and serious commitment to make in a place that is facing this many environmental and financial threats. Don't let the dream of a sunny life blind you to the reality of a bad investment that could ruin your retirement and your future. The sunshine might be free, but the cost to stay under it is becoming much higher than most families can ever afford to pay. Understand the risks, check the numbers yourself, and make sure you aren't buying into a financial nightmare that you can't escape. We hope this deep dive into the 5 worst markets in Florida has given you the clarity and the data you need to stay safe. Thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next analysis of the markets you need to watch out for to protect your life.